The Wolf Among Us, a classic adventure game set in the Star Trek The Next Generation universe. So what is The Wolf Among Us? Well, simply put, it's an adventure game from Telltale Games, so you know it's going to be good. To go a little bit more in depth, it's one part classic 1940s detective film noir, one part disturbing 1990s crime thriller, and one part fairy tale. Yeah, really, fairy tale. Cue stock sound of vinyl record stopping abruptly. You see, some of the most beloved fairy tales of all time actually happened, and the characters from those fairy tales are real people who now live in New York. They're not normal people. I mean, they can live for hundreds of years, they have super strength, and they can cast various magical spells, just like the way they could in the fairy tales they're famous for. They're basically magical people, if you will. They kind of keep to themselves. They have their own community, their own ecosystem, and of course, every community needs a lawman. And in this community, the sheriff just happens to be the most infamous fairy tale character of all, the big bad wolf. He now calls himself Big B Wolf. Now, why does he look like a human? Well, it's because some of the fairy tale creatures that don't look human can actually glamour their appearance using a magical spell, and they can basically appear to look like humans. Now, his job is to be one part policeman and one part detective in this crime thriller. And believe me, there's a lot of crime to solve, because in this game the fairy tales are not the noble and innocent creatures from our fables. They are gritty. I mean, it feels like every other character in this game is on Skid Row. Beauty and the Beast are kind of having this dysfunctional relationship. Some of the princesses from lesser-known fairy tales are hookers now. One of the pigs who had his house blown down when the wolf huffed and puffed and blew his house down is now basically an alcoholic that squats in Big B's apartment. But hey, they're friends now. And now our reformed bad boy sheriff has to police all these people. The story starts off with a relatively petty crime, and then it moves higher and higher into worse and worse crimes. I mean, it goes from a little violence to murder to serial killing to basically a giant conspiracy that involves all the fairy tale characters in the game. The game story is rich, and all the characters have layers upon layers of depth. I mean, it's very much like the Walking Dead games from Telltale Games, just in terms of story and character quality. Now keep in mind, this is not your grandfather's point-and-click adventure game. This is not a hard game to play. The game really focuses more on the story. There's not any crazy puzzles to solve. Basically, when you have an item, you know what to use it on. What's complex in the game is the dialogue options. These really are things that change the story. You're supposed to find out things from people. You're supposed to decide where to go next, because a lot of time is a priority. So if you do one thing before a different thing, the story will change for either the better or for the worse. There are some action sequences where you either have to button mash or press a button at the right time to perform an action or get out of the way of an attack or something to that effect, but these are fairly easy to master. The timing isn't that hard at all. We're not talking about a Mega Man boss here. The Wolf Among Us is a lot more formalistic than, say, the Walking Dead games, because it's not as based in reality. And of course, The Walking Dead is not based in reality. What I mean is, there's magic in the game. A lot of the characters are super strong or superhuman in other ways. The characters in the game are basically not as fragile as the characters in The Walking Dead. Not physically, anyway. In terms of quality, though, the game is absolutely just as good as The Walking Dead games. I'm gonna give it the same exact score I gave The Walking Dead Season 2 because it absolutely deserves it. This is a fantastic adventure game. It is one of the greatest adventure games of all time. It gets an official stanburdman rating of a 9.3 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.